Things they don't tell you about cruise ships. Your ship might not actually dock. You may anchor offshore and then have to take a smaller boat to the dock. The ship may not be able to dock because the area is too shallow or there's a protected reef. So in this case, the Oosterdam used its own lifeboats to ferry guests from the ship there in the distance to the dock on the shore. And then after the operation is done, the lifeboats are lifted back up onto the ship to store for another day. Things they don't tell you about cruise ships, part 22. Facebook groups. You can find all kinds of groups on the Facebook related to cruising. There may be one for your ship or the general cruise line, or even one for your particular sailing. I tend to stay away from the larger groups for the cruise line or the ship because it's filled with a lot of people with a lot of very strong opinions about the cruise line. But if you find one for your particular sailing, it may be a fun way to meet people before you head up to the cruise. Sometimes they even organize slot tournaments or different dinners or activities. But it's really important to remember that these are still strangers on the internet. These Facebook groups don't verify that people will actually be on your sailing. So use some common sense and don't be giving out your credit card information. Things they don't tell you about cruise ships, part 23, ducks. So hiding little tiny plastic ducks around cruise ships has suddenly become quite a thing. Some have little tags so you can track their journeys on Facebook, but the cruise lines don't love them, especially when some get hidden in areas that compromise ship safety. So if you want to hide them, be sure to check the cruise line rules, but don't be disappointed if many of your ducks end up in the hands of crew members as they clean up around the ship. Things they don't tell you about cruise ships, part 24, shore excursions. Shore excursions are generally group tours to explore your port of call. The cruise ship offers them. Now, if you have certain activities you want to be sure to do, you want to book early as cruise ships can sell out. You can also choose to book an independent shore excursion, meaning you don't book through the cruise line, but rather through another local company. I want to double check that this independent company offers a next port guarantee, meaning they will guarantee to get you back to the ship before it departs, or they will pay for your transportation to the next port of call. You'll also want to pay special attention to where the independent shore excursion is meeting. They may not pick you up at the pier. You may need to find your way into the port of call to meet at a central location. Lastly, a lot of people just like to wing it, get off the ship, and try to negotiate with a taxi driver. You may want to make sure you have the local currency or a lot of American cash if you're going to try to do that. Things they don't tell you about cruise ships, part 25, where they get their food. Historically, large cruise ships like Holland America have sourced their food from the United States, loaded it into containers, and shipped it to ports all over the world. This happens for two main reasons. One, the cruising clientele enjoys having items they're familiar with, so food, yogurt, cereals that they know. And then two, it can be hard to source the volume of food needed in different ports. In recent years, there's been a shift to source more produce and other food items locally. So cruise lines have worked really hard to find purveyors and different distribution companies in local ports to help support those ports and to provide fresher food for guests on board. On your next cruise, there may be a question and answer session with the food and beverage manager, the captain, or a cruise director. It'd be really interesting to ask how much of their food is sourced from the United States and how much is sourced locally throughout your cruise journey. Things they don't tell you about cruise ships, part 26. You might need to bring a special outfit. Most cruise lines have what they call an elegant or a cruise elegant or a formal night, 1 or 2 nights during their sailing. Usually it's 1 night on a 3 to 5 night sailing and 2 nights on 7 to 10 night sailings. Now, it's not compulsory on most cruise lines. You don't have to dress up. But a lot of people will bring really fancy clothes. Women will be in fancy dresses. Men, you definitely want to have a pair of pants and a shirt with a collar in your suitcase and some closed-toed shoes so you fit in. If you don't want to dress up, it's no problem. You can just head to the buffet or just make sure you comply with the cruise line's dress code. The cruise ships will also have theme nights. So a lot of ships have a white night party or an 80s neon glow night or a Caribbean night. So you want to check with that cruise line to see what their theme parties are. Carnival's really good about this. They actually send out an email in advance letting you know what the theme nights are going to be on their sailings. And we try to keep clients informed when we know for what the different theme nights will be on their upcoming cruise. So do you bring special outfits when you cruise? Let me know. Things they don't tell you about cruise ships, part 27. The crew have no break in between cruises. Yesterday, somebody made a comment to a crew member like, oh, tomorrow will be an easy day as you reset for the next cruise, thinking that the crew had a day in between sailings. But no, people are getting off by 9 a.m. and new people will be starting to come on the ship by 11 a.m. That means the 6,000 people on this ship will all be exiting as 6,000 more people arrive. And we're not the only ship in port. So you can imagine that ports get very congested, especially first thing as everyone's exiting and then around noon as everyone is coming. Things they don't tell you about cruise ships, part 28, prohibited items. As you're leaving a cruise ship, you may notice a table that looks like this. These are all items that were taken away from guests prior to boarding. In general, most cruise lines prohibit anything that produces heat because fire is one of the biggest dangers at sea. So that would be heating pads, irons, steamers, candles. Some people bring their own coffee maker. All of those are prohibited. Most cruise lines do give an exception to curling irons and flat irons. Some fans are prohibited based on their size or the amount of electricity they pull. Extension cords with surge protectors are prohibited. If you're not sure, be sure to check the cruise line's website for what's permitted on board. Things they don't tell you about cruise ships, part 29, why they move the ships around. Cruise lines have what they call classes of ships. So these are ships that are virtually identical. They have the same design, the same lounges, mostly the same restaurants. So think of the Royal Caribbean Oasis class ships, Oasis, Allure, Harmony. They're all very, very similar. So recently I was in a Q&A with the Royal Caribbean cruise director. Someone asked, why do they move ships around? If the Oasis and the Allure are virtually the same, why switch where they are sailing? The reason is the shows. The shows are different on all of the different ships. So while the experience and the amenities will be the same, by moving a ship from one location to another, it gives those folks who live close to that port the opportunity to see different shows. Things they don't tell you about cruise ships, part 30. You can take an excursion on the way to the airport. This past weekend, we took a little 3-night girls cruise out of Fort Lauderdale, and our flight back home wasn't until 4 p.m. So we booked the cruise ship's excursion that included an airboat ride to kill a few hours before we headed to the airport. So instead of just staring at each other, waiting at the airport, we enjoyed this.